Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update from AGM Markets. Today is the 3rd of May 2013. What we'll do today is go through a few forex pairs. We'll have a look at Euro dollar cable, dollar Swiss, dollar yen and dollar CAD. Just sort of review what's been going on. And I'll look at some interesting setups I'm personally having a look at, which may be of interest. We're not making any trade calls or recommendations on this video. You trade at your own risk. If you could please read our full disclaimer on our website www.agmmarkets.com. For any new followers, we have 3 moving averages in each of these charts. The red one is a 50 simple moving average, the blue is a 100 simple, and the gold is a 200 simple moving average. Okay, let's have a look at the euro dollar. So this is the daily chart. And what's key for, based on each of these charts, we'll start on the daily and then work our way downwards into the 4 hour and maybe even 1 hour, but mainly the daily and 4 hour. We'll take a sort of top-down approach, let's say. So just for context, really, it's good to keep in mind that on this daily chart, this daily sort of fib setup is still technically in play. Bulls are looking, in my opinion, to take this all the way up to the 0.0%. Of course, I most probably have stops below the 61.8. But what you also have is, and this has happened this week actually, from the highs here to the recent lows, you also have the bears coming in at the 50%. Let's zoom in so we can see it's a bit clearer. So if you zoom in on this daily chart, it's the high of the daily chart to the low. Surprise, surprise, also coming in at the 50% level. Decent sort of reversal candle the other day. And yesterday was a very bearish day with the ECB rate decision, cutting rates, etc., etc. So that setup is also technically in play. But you also have another one. This is why Euro is so interesting at the minute. It's very sort of 50-50. There's a lot of setups still in play, and we also had this one here from the highs to these lows around here. And of course, if you extend it, this setup got bought up at the 50%, rotated higher to the 0.0%, and it looks like that's pretty much been capped. So the great thing, on Euro, you could have been in that long there and that short there, both got break even, what have you, and then perhaps bank your profits to the 0.0%. The long one's pretty much done, so the second one is still technically in play, and in my opinion is looking to come down and take out the 0.0%. So that's what has been going on Euro, in my opinion. If you look at the 4 hour, if you zoom out quickly, so we had that first sort of long setup that got bought up. You can see it much clearer on that 4 hours where you got that 200 SMA as well, which was right on that 50%. Lovely rotation higher. And for the other sort of dip buyers out there, there'll be a lot of people, in my opinion, that will be in this setup here. So from the low of that 50% to the recent high, surprise, surprise, we're getting a bounce off of the 61.8% retracement, and we're trying to rotate higher. The bears will obviously be capping at that big daily 50%, but also if you flip it to a 1 hour, then you have the 1 hour sellers coming in at these sort of dips here. So that fib from lows to highs there got sold off, and also you'll have people, I'd have thought so, well, in fact it's pretty obvious that it is happening because the price is dictating it, from that fib there, from the highs to the lows, getting sold off at the 50%, most probably with stops behind this 61.8. So in terms of the fibs, that's what's been going on. I personally look at fibs, that's why in these videos it'll be from a fib perspective, but I think it's just a decent way to look at the markets, really, and they clearly work, and it's a common tool on the MT4 platform. If you want to look at other sort of technicals, for example trend lines, then we're technically in a nice little uptrend on this 4 hour chart, which can be seen there. So that's pretty much what's been going on Euro. lots of interesting setups still in place. You've got the big one still in play on the daily, that big one on the long is still in play, also that one from the highs to lows there is still in play. And then on the shorter time frames, you've got this one from the lows here to the highs there, that is still in play. And also on the shorter time frame, on the 1 hour, you've got a short setup which is currently, probably would have got triggered quite recently, from highs to lows there. So lots of interesting fib setups going on in the euro. It's been very, very technical indeed. And yeah, that's my review on euro. So let's have a look at cable. Cable for me, on this daily, I mean, the best thing to do in my opinion is just to look at the things that jump out at you straight away. So for me, it's all about the fib setup from highs to lows there. Bam, surprise, surprise, we're getting sold off at the 50% to the pip. So odds would be for this, I mean, the sellers are hoping to bring it down to the 0.0%. Of course, it can keep on grinding higher. We're actually getting a nice little support at the 100 SMA here. So maybe we may grind higher and maybe even test that 200 SMA before coming down. Or of course, we could just close above the 61.8 and continue ripping higher. It doesn't have to hold. So that's my daily perspective. On the 4 hour, it's been a really, really interesting chart. We've spoken about this in the last sort of few weeks. We had this fib set up from the highs, sorry, from that lows there to the highs there. And of course, if you draw it sideways, you can see it fully. Lovely rotation off the 50%. There was also previous support as well. Re-rotated higher to the 0.0%. And then if you extend that low, so that move is done in my opinion, because it came out and hit the 0%. So if you draw your low from that 50% dip, or the recent swing low, whatever you want to call it, to that recent swing high there, and you extended it wide, you can see we got a lovely bounce off this 50% zone, 50% retracement zone. Surprise, surprise, we rotated high and took out the 0% line. So the next one I'm personally looking at would be from this low here, which is the previous dip low. And there's also a trend line low for any of you that like playing the trend lines. You have that trend line support there. So that's another way of sort of where to pick your lows and highs to draw fibs. So that's some people struggle at. That's the clear swing low in my opinion, to highs there. So if it comes down to 50%, that could be an interesting buying zone in my opinion. But of course, not to forget, let's go back into that daily, you would of course be buying into a big selling zone, so a tricky one. Of course you can see that there, so you've got this trend line support here, the mini fib, but you are buying into that big level. So if it comes down here, tests the 50%, rotates higher, that 0% is right on the big 50% retracement to the downside. It's a very, very technical chart indeed. That's how I'm personally looking at it, and I think it's just the obvious way to look at it, to be honest with you. So yeah, the bulls and the bears, it's a nice bit of tug of war at the minute. I wouldn't be surprised to see the bears win it for the meantime, come back down to this 50%. I wouldn't be surprised to see the bears come in and try and buy it up again. Of course, it doesn't have to hold. It could always break this trend line support and rip down towards the 0% here. But yeah, very interesting chart that in my opinion. Dollar Swiss, however, isn't that much of an interesting chart. Of course, you do have, like Euro, remember we've been talking about Euro and Dollar Swiss doing a completely opposite sort of thing at the minute. So on the Euro Dollar daily chart, you have that big fib set up from the lows to the highs on the daily. Surprise, surprise, as it's doing a mirror thing. If we draw a fib from the high of the chart to the low, then we have buyers coming in at the 50%, in between the 50% and 61.8% range, and trying to bring it down low. It did come down low and it came back up, and surprise, surprise, it tested that 50% to the pip, and it's trying to grind down lower here. Also, we have a trendline support, which is technically holding with a nice sort of daily reversal candle there as well. But you also have a trendline resistance here as well. So it's quite choppy at the minute. The bears are trying to hold it off the 50% and the bulls are trying to support it off of the trendline support. So that's what's going on in my opinion, on dollar Swiss. Okay, let's have a look at the dollar yen chart. Dollar yen chart really hasn't changed. If we flip it, this is the daily. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. For me, it's just, I mean, it's still, we're in a massive uptrend, you have to realise here. So looking for selling opportunities is very brave. So for me personally, I'm just looking at buying opportunities. We had this fib from that the recent swing low to, that was a swing low in April, to the highs. It's still in between this zone, so the sort of 50% zone and 0%. It did, so obviously the first time it came down to 50%, it then did rotate higher, pretty much to 0%, but it didn't take the higher out. So I'm personally not drawing my low, extending my low to this little dip here, because this first setup is still in play until it breaks that high. Then I'll move my fib low to that one there. Or even that one there, to be honest with you. But yeah, you can see it's just still just chopping. So yeah, that's all I'm really focused on. Dollar yen, nothing much of interest. It's just really going sideways. We'll personally just be looking for a breakout either side. Let's move on to our last pair. Dollar CAD's been an interesting one. For the trend line followers, this is on the daily. You have the trend line support coming in there. It's been playing the fibs nicely, really, with that. Well, the first one here, lows to highs. So that high there, and draw it wider. Surprise, surprise, came at 50%, rotated higher, and then if you extended that low, move that low up, and then drew it to the this recent high here, bring it wider, bam, off the 50%, surprise, surprise, rotated higher. And now all is the bigger one I'm personally looking at is from the low of the trendline supports, that big obvious dip low, to the high. It's also coming in at the 50% here and looking to rotate higher. But if you're looking for the shorter term players will be looking at selling opportunities. It's technically in a downtrend, so they'll be looking to cap this pair, in my opinion, from that high there to the lows, and looking at coming out the 50% zone, which has also got quite a few moving averages in between. You've got the 50 SMA just below it, and you also got the 100 and 200 in between the 50% and 61.8% zone. So yeah, quite a few interesting charts there, in my opinion. Lots of interesting setups going on. The technicals are playing out really nicely. Yeah, that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed that video. If there's any other charts that we'll have a look at next week, then feel free to comment under our YouTube channel, which is AGM Markets. We'll also post this on our Twitter page, so feel free to comment under there on our Twitter feed, which is at AGM Markets. Okay, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll catch you next week.